We continue now at the top of Daf Lamed Zayin Amud Aleph in Meseches Gittin. This is Gittin Daf 37a. On the previous summit, the Gemara asked, what does the word pruzbul come from? And the Gemara says it means the pruz or the takana, the institution of the buli and the buti. And the Gemara now explains buli elo ashirim. Buli refers to the wealthy people. Tichsiv, as the pasuk says, v'shavarti esko neuzchem. I'm going to break, I'm going to destroy the pride of your strength. V'tani Rav Yosef, and Rav Yosef taught elu bolaos sheb Yehuda. This refers to the wealthy people in Yehuda. And you see that he uses the word bolaos to mean wealthy. And buti elu ha'aniyim. Buti means the poor people. Tichsiv havet havitenu. It says you should surely lend him money. And who are you lending? You're lending the poor people. And so essentially, pruzbul means the takana for the wealthy and the poor. And Rashi explains, buli ubuti ashirim vaniyim, the wealthy and the poor. Ashirim shelo yafsidu, that means the ashirim, that they shouldn't lose their money, they'll be able to get paid back. Vaniyim shelo yinalu deles bifneim, and it refers to aniyim, so that people shouldn't close the door in front of them, meaning so that people should be willing to lend them money. Essentially, the takana of pruzbul is beneficial to both the wealthy and the poor. And the Gemara continues, Amarle Rava Leleuza. Rava said to Leuza, somebody who spoke a foreign language. Rashi says, Leleuza she'enu medaber b'loshen ivri hu Leuza. Anyone who doesn't talk Hebrew is a Leuza. V'osa sheshal Rava himenu zos medaber b'loshen pruzbul. The person that Rava was asking spoke the same language that the word pruzbul comes from. Uperish loshe b'loshono pruz pursa takana. And he explained to him that the word pruz means the takana means an institution. So again, Rava said to this foreigner, my pruzbul, what is pruzbul? Amarle pursa de so he said it's an institution of a matter. Amar Rav Yehuda, Amar Shmuel. Rav Yehuda said that Shmuel said, Yisomin ein tzrichin pruzbul. Yisomin, orphans, they do not require a pruzbul. Rashi says, ein tzrichin pruzbul she'ein shvius meshamed es chov shel avi and hames, because shvius does not cancel the debt of their father who died. V'chein tani Rami Bar Chama, and similarly Rami Bar Chama teaches Yisomin ein tzrichin pruzbul. Orphans do not require a pruzbul. The Rabbi Gamliel ubezdino avian shal Yisomin, because Rabbi Gamliel and his court are considered the father of the Yisomim, of the orphans. Rashi says Rabbi Gamliel ubezdino kolomar nesiya Yisrael shebechol dor v'dor. What that means to say is the leaders of Klal Yisrael in every generation. Avian shal Yisomin hein. They are the fathers of the Yisomim. Umemunim alein ve'al memona vayushtarosein kimisurim lebezin. They're appointed over them to watch over these Yisomim, and they're appointed over their money, and therefore it's as if their documents are given over to Bezdin. Hadinakat Rabbi Gamliel. The reason why the Gemara is talking about Rabbi Gamliel specifically, not leaders in general, Shaya Bezdino Kayim v'noe kishenishnis mishnazu, because his court was around when this Mishnah was taught. V'had Rami Bar Chama Braisi, and this Rami Bar Chama teaching over here, it says again, Tani Rami Bar Chama, that is a Braisa, and that's the idea. At that time, Rabbi Gamliel's court was in session. And the Gemara continues to Nan Hasam, we learned in a Mishnah over there. Ein kozvin pruzbul ela ala karka. We can only write pruzbul if the person, the borrower, has karka, has land, and if he doesn't have land, mizakeu b'soch sadeu kol shehu. So the lender can give the borrower even a tiny amount of land from within his land, and that is sufficient to write a pruzbul. The kama kol shehu, and how much is considered a kol shehu? Any small amount of land. Amar Rav Chia bar Ashi, Amar Rav. Rav Chia bar Ashi says that Rav says afilu kalach shel kruv, even one stalk of cabbage, that is enough to give the borrower, to allow the lender to write a pruzbul. Rashi says, Ela la karka miyesh karka lalova. The lova must have karka. Because they only instituted pruzbul in a situation where this debt is like other documents, other situations of debt. And most debts are collectible from karka, from land. To have a milsa de shlicha, that's considered a common kind of situation, like we say in many places. Because by something that's not common, the Rabbanan didn't make any such institution. Now, even though it's not worth the entire debt, meaning it could be any amount of karka, it doesn't have to be karka worth the amount of the debt. But we've said earlier, even a small amount of land, you can use that to collect a large amount from. That's the episode we quoted earlier from Ksubis, the Maisa, the Katina, the Abai. Again, that small plot of land in that case as well, it was collected over and over again, and that same idea, so to speak, is used over here. Even a small amount of land is enough to write a pruzbul. And the Gemara continues, Amar Rav Yehuda says, Afilu hishilu makom letanor lekirayim, even if he just lent him enough place to put his oven or his stove, kos v'nala pruzbul, that's enough land to be considered that you can write about him or write on him on that debt at pruzbul. And the Gemara says, is that really true? Vatani Hillel, but Hillel taught, Ein kos v'n pruzbul el alatzitz nakov bilvad. You're only allowed to write a pruzbul if you have a plant in a pot, if it has a hole in it. Then it's considered like it's getting the nutrients, the sustenance from the ground. That's considered attached to the ground. Nakov in shein or nakov lo, but that's only if it has a hole in it. But if the pot does not have a hole in it, it's not attached to the ground. That's not good enough. But Amaiva, why is that the case? So you just said that if the person was borrowing an area to put something down, that's enough. But here there is the location, the area where the otzitz is. Even if it doesn't have a hole, if the borrower was able to put it down somewhere, so the borrower has land, and therefore we should be able to write a pruzbul. And the Gemara answers to that, lo no tzricha, we need a demonach asichi, that it's standing on top of stakes or it's on poles. In other words, the point is he has no land whatsoever, he just has the otzitz. So then the idea is that if it has a hole in it, it's sufficient. If it does not have a hole in it, then it's not going to be sufficient. And the Gemara continues, Rav Ashi makni le gidmo dedikla. Rav Ashi was makna to him the stump of a palm tree. That was considered sufficient land to write a pruzbul. The chasav ala pruzbul, and with that he was able to write a pruzbul. Rabbanan devei Rav Ashi, the Rabbanan in the yeshiva of Rav Ashi, masri milayu lahadadi, they gave over their words to one another. Rabbi Yonasan masar mili le Rabbi Chia bar Abba, and Rabbi Yonasan, he gave over words to Rabbi Chia bar Abba. We'll see Rashi in a moment what that means. Amar lei said to him, tzrich namidi achrina, do we need anything else? Our words are sufficient. Amar lei lo tzrich, he said to him, you don't need anything more. And Rashi says, masri milayu, what does that mean? Below ksivas pruzbul, meaning they didn't even write a pruzbul. Alakach amar lechaver, they said to each other, harei atem bezdin, they would say to one another, you are a bezdin, v'chovi masr lechem legavoso, and my debt that's given over to you for you to collect, calls man she'ertza, anytime that I want, and that alone, those words alone would be sufficient. There was no need to write an actual pruzbul. And the Gemara continues, Tanu Rabbanan, the rabbis taught, Ein lo karka ula orev yesh lo karka. Let's say the borrower does not have any land, but there's a guarantor on the loan, and the guarantor has land. Kosvan ala pruzbul. That's enough to write a pruzbul on the fact that the orev has land. Lo ula orev ein land karka. If he doesn't have land, and the orev doesn't have land, v'lachayev lo yesh lo karka. But somebody who's obligated to him, that person does have land. Kosvan ala pruzbul. That's also enough to write a pruzbul mid Reb Nassan, from the teaching of Rabbi Nassan. The Tanya has been learned in a brayso. Rabbi Nassan, Rabbi Nassan says, Minayin lenosha b'chavero mana v'chavero b'chavero. How do we know that if somebody owes somebody else a mana and then somebody owes that person a mana? So minayin shemotziin mizev v'nosin lazeh. How do we know that we can skip the person in the middle and the person who ultimately owes the money can pay back to the original creditor, so to speak? Talmud Lomar v'nasan la'asher asham lo. It says v'nasan la'asher asham lo. It means you can pay it back to the person who ultimately you are obligated to. And so therefore, in this situation, even if the borrower and the guarantor, even though they don't have any land, but since somebody that owes them money has land, so ultimately the lender can go to that person, that is sufficient to write a pruzbul. And the Gemara continues, Tanan Hasam, we learned in a Mishnah over there, Hashvias Mishametes as Amilva, Bein Mishtar, Bein Shalo Bishtar. Shvias can cancel a loan. It doesn't matter if the loan is with a document or without a document. And the Gemara says, Rav Shmuel da Amri Tarvai. Rav and Shmuel, they both say, in explaining this Mishnah, what does it mean, Bishtar, Shtar sheyesh bo achrayis nechasim? With a shtar means to say that it is a document where there is a lien, meaning to say that Shemitah cancels a loan if that loan has a lien. And Shalo Bishtar, what does it mean? Shalo Bishtar she'ein bo achrayis nechasim, that would mean a loan without any property that has a lien on it. And Kol shekein milval pes, certainly Shvius would cancel a loan, which is just a verbal loan where there is no document. Rabbi Yochanan and Rabbi Shimon ben Lakish, the Amri Tarvaya. Rabbi Yochanan and Rabbi Shimon ben Lakish, they explain the Mishnah differently as follows: B'shtar shtar she'ein bo achrayis nechasim. When we say Shemitah cancels a loan with a shtar, that's specifically with a shtar where there is no lien on any property. Shalo b'shtar milval peh. When it says shalo b'shtar, that means that Shemitah cancels a loan if it's a milval peh, if there is no document, if it's not written down. Avol shtar sheyesh bo achrayis nechasim. But according to Rabbi Yochanan and Reish Lakish, if you have a shtar and there's a lien on property, Eino Meshamet. There it's not going to be Meshamet. And Rashi explains Eino Meshamet Techigavi Dami, because according to Rabbi Yochanan and Rabbi Shimon ben Lakish, that loan, it's as if it's already collected. Ukamosha Karkos Bechezkas Hamilvein, it's as if the karka is already in possession of the lender. Ukavuyos Mamish, it's already as if it's collected. Ve'ein kan chov, that's not considered a debt. And that's why Rabbi Yochanan and Reish Lakish say that by a shtar with achrayis nechasim, that if there's a lien on property with a shtar, then Shemitah will not cancel that loan. And the Gemara continues, Tanya Kavasi to Rabbi Yochanan and Rabbi Shimon ben Lakish. We have a brisa that supports this position of Rabbi Yochanan and Rabbi Shimon ben Lakish. Shtar chov meshamet v'im yesh ba'achrayis nechasim eino meshamet. If you have a shtar, an obligation, then the Shemitah does cancel the loan. But if there's a lien on property, it does not cancel the loan. And again, that supports Rabbi Yochanan and Reish Lakish's position. And the Gemara continues, Tanya Idach, we learned in another brisa, Siyam lo sada achas ba'alvaso eino meshamet. If the person designated one particular field in terms of the loan that the lender can collect that field, that loan is not canceled by Shemitah v'lo owed. Not only that, ela afilu kasav kol nechasai achroin ve'arvoin lach. Even if he writes to him, all of my property is guaranteed to you for this loan, eino meshamet. That loan will not be canceled by the Shemitah year. Kriva de Ravasi Havalei Ahushtar to have Ksib Be'achrayis Nechasim. The relative of Ravasi had a shtar and there was a lien on property for that loan. Asalakami de Ravasi came before Ravasi. Amarle said to Meshamet o Eino Meshamet, does Shemitah cancel the loan or not? Amarle Eino Meshamet. He says Shemitah will not cancel such a loan because again there's Achrayis Nechasim, there's a lien on the property. Shav gave Asalakami de Rabbi Yochanan, so he left him and he went in front of Rabbi Yochanan to ask him. Amarle Meshamet. Rabbi Yochanan also said Shemitah cancels the loan. So also Ravasi l'kamid Rabbi Yochanan. So then Ravasi came before Rabbi Yochanan. Amar Leini said to Meshamed or Eino Meshamed, does it cancel the loan or not? Amar Le Meshamed, he says it does cancel the loan. V'hamar damar Eino Meshamed. So Ravasi said to Rabbi Yochanan, but the master, you Rabbi Yochanan are the one who said that it doesn't cancel the loan. You said that if you have a situation of achrayis nechasim, if there's a lien on property, then Shemitah does not cancel such a loan. Amar Le, so he said to him, just because we believe something might be correct, therefore we should paskin that way. I wasn't certain of that fact, and that's why in this situation when I was asked, I said that Shemitah would cancel the loan. Amar Leis Vatanya Kavase Demar, but there was a brisa that said, like the master, there was even a brisa that supported the position of Rabbi Yochanan and Reish Lakish. Amar Leini said to him regarding that, Dilma hi Beis Shammai, maybe that brisa followed Beis Shammai. The Amri Shtar ha'omid ligvos kagavoy dami, because Beis Shammai hold that if you have a shtar that's ready to be collected, that is as if it is collected. But again, that's only the opinion of Beis Shammai. It's not necessarily a proof in general. And Rashi explains, Siem hera b'simoneh v'mitzareha t'chagavoy mamish dami. That means, let's say the person designated a field and showed exactly where the boundaries of this field are and said this field is designated for collection. Should I not be able to pay back the loan? That's already like it's already collected. And then we said that the Brisa said that Shemitah will not cancel such a loan. And then it said not only that, afilu kasav kol nechasai achroy, and even if the person wrote all of my property is achroy, the lo dami lagavi kol kach kesayim. That's not like actually designating an exact field. Person just says all of my property. Nevertheless, he's giving his property towards the loan, and so therefore that's considered like it's collected, and Shemitah will not cancel that loan. Krivoy de Rabasi hu haya hamalva. The case over there was the relative of Rabbi Asi, was the lender. We didn't hear this from our rabbis, said Rabbi Yochanan. It was just something that we believe to be correct. Just because of that, nasa ma'isa lahotzi mamono biyadayim. Just because of that, we're going to paskin that way and take away money. Because again, essentially what he was saying was that in a situation where there is a lien on property, Shemitah doesn't cancel the loan and the loan can be collected. But he said just because we believe that's the case doesn't mean we're going to rule that way and actually collect the money. And then the Gemara said to Beis Shammai, again, maybe that brisa was Beis Shammai. Beis Shammai is b'Meseches Sota. The Shita Beis Shammai is in Meseches Sota. Mesu ba'alein ad shaloshasu. Beis Shammai omrim no telos ksubason v'lo shosos. Let's say their husbands die before they drink. That's talking about the bitter waters of the Sota. Beis Shammai say over there that they can collect their ksuba. And the reasoning is, ha'omed ligvos, if something is standing to be collected, me'achar sheshtar kosher u'va'karka meshubed bo, since the shtar is kosher and there's a lien on the property, that's considered as if it's already collected according to Beis Shammai. And the Gemara continues, Tanan Hasam, we learned in a Mishnah over there, this is again a Mishnah in Shvius, Hamalva es chaveiro mos ala mashkin, if somebody lends his friend money and there's a collateral, there's a mashkin involved in that loan, v'hamos shtaros of lebezin, let's say somebody gives his documents over to Bezin to collect, ein meshamtin, so Shemitah will not cancel such a loan. And the Gemara says, Bishlama Moser Shtaros of Lebezin. I understand if the person gives his shtaros to Bezdin, the Tafsi Luhu Beidina, because then Bezdin is the one that's collecting. And Rashi says, the Tafsi Luhu Beidina of Hefker and Hefker, as we've said earlier, when Bezdin makes something ownerless, it's considered ownerless. The Gabe Milva Lo Korenim Be Lo Yigos. It's not called Lo Yigos. Again, the pasuk by Shemitah canceling the loan is that he can't press the borrower, but over here that's not happening. The Bezdin is taking care of the collection. So we understand Moser Shtaros of Lebezdin. Ela Milva mashkin my time, but if there's a loan with a collateral, what's the reason Shemitah doesn't cancel that loan? Amar Rava says, Mishum de tafas lei. The reason is, again, because he can just grab it. As Rashi says, the tafas lei ve'eno nogso v'tovo klum. He doesn't have to press him. He doesn't have to claim anything from him. He just has the collateral, and it's already like it's collected. Therefore, again, over there, Shemitah does not cancel the loan. Amar le Abaye, so Abaye said to him, if that's the reason, Elameata, according to that, he'll veyu v'dar b'chatzer. What if a person lends him money, the lender lends the borrower money, and then he lives in the chatzer of the borrower, the toughest lay, so he's already grabbed the borrower's property. So hachanami delo mashamin, are you going to say that over there also, Shemitah doesn't cancel the loan just because he's living in his chatzer? Amarle said to him, Shani Mashka. No, it's different when you have a collateral. And again, the collateral, as Rashi says, Shani Mashka de metaltali, that's a movable object. That's not a piece of land. That's different. Dekani le mid Rav Yitzchak, because the lender actually acquires. It's actually as if he owns it from the teaching of Rav Yitzchak. Rashi says, what does that mean? Dekani le lemalvev im avar chay b'achrayusa. What it means is, the lender really is considered the owner of the collateral. Let's say the collateral will get lost. That loss of money would be the lender's loss of money. It's as if he already has that in his possession. Hilkach kagavi dami. That's why it's considered like it's already collected. Le'inyan shvius, in terms of the halachas of shvius. The Yamar Rabbi Yitzchak, says the Gemara, because Rabbi Yitzchak says, Minayin lebal chov shemashkon. From where do we know that the creditor, it's considered like he's the owner of the mashkon? Shenemar, like the pasuk says, ulachati et tzedakah, will be for you a tzedakah. What that's referring to is that the lender, if he allows the borrower to use that collateral at various points in time, at various points in time, it's like a tzedakah, it's like a charity. Now, Ameino Kona, now if he wasn't the owner of it, tzedakah minayin, why would it be considered tzedakah? The fact that we're considering it tzedakah shows that the creditor is really considered to be the owner of that collateral, and therefore mikan lebal chov shekona mashkon. From here we learn that a bal chov is the owner of the mashkon. Tanan Hassam, we learned in a Mishnah over there, and we will continue with this discussion in the next video on Daf Lamed Zayin Amid Beis.